Hi there. Today we're going to be covering Inkscape, and specifically I'm going to show you how to make some YouTube thumbnails. We're going to cover how to get backgrounds removed from photos and how to set everything up and some kind of preferred practices that you want to use for YouTube thumbnails in 2023. Let's get started. So here we are, and the first thing I'm going to show you is where to find Inkscape. Now, Inkscape is free. They do accept donations, and it's also available for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. I've used it in both Mac OS and Windows. So today we're going to be working in Windows, Windows 10 specifically. So this is the address, the URL for this site. I'll put a link down below so you can just click on that if you don't already have it. So once you've got it installed, then we're going to go into Inkscape. So I fired this up. The only thing I kind of set up was the size. What you're going to want to do, of course, the first thing is you need to set your document size. So for YouTube thumbnails, it needs to be 16 by 9. I tend to prefer 1920 by 1080p. To get to that setting, you just go up to File, and then down to Document Properties, or you can do Shift-Control-D on the keyboard. So you'll notice over in the lower right-hand section here, when you first open this up, it's probably going to be set to centimeters or millimeters or inches, depending on what country you're in. So you want to pop this little list down and choose PX for pixel, and same thing with display units for pixel. And then you just fill in these two boxes, 1920 by 1080p. And then we just click out in the empty desktop here, and then if we hit the number 5 on the keyboard, that expands us to full size, and you can always get back to this exact kind of zoomed in perspective anytime you hit the number 5, as long as you're not inside of a text field or something. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a background on this. Now, even though to start with it's going to be a white background, you need to have a background because when you go to convert this to a JPEG or export it as a JPEG, it'll do some funky things to any drop shadows or some other things that you might have with like a partial transparency or opacity in it. Not sure why this is. It could be a bug, but just to save issues, just draw a box, fill it with white for your background, and then we'll do everything on top of that. So we'll just get started with that. Over on the upper right corner, you see this little icon here. So if you want to have it turn on snapping, you just click that. It'll show it's kind of inset. And then we can just go here and we can draw our box. Now to change the outline, if you want to get rid of the outline, you just, on this little X, you hold your shift key down, click on the X, and it'll get rid of that outline. And then you just do a normal click for whatever color you want. So in this case, it's going to be white. And then we'll go back and select our pointer tool. And now I'm just going to make a copy of this. So I'm going to duplicate it with Control D. Now if you see, if we change the color on this one, let's make it like a kind of a maroon color. So we can pull out of the way. You'll see there is still that white one in the background. So now the reason I'm doing this is on YouTube, if you notice, let me just bring it up real quick just to show you. So if you look at YouTube, when they did the latest update, you notice they put like this kind of a curved shape on the corners to overlay your thumbnail. And on mobile devices, it's even more noticeable. It looks kind of funny if you have like a square cornered border now on there because it kind of cuts it off in a weird way. So we're going to compensate for that. So we start with whatever color we want this border to be. And then we're going to draw another box on top of this. And if you notice, there's little arrows here that show where on the ruler that I'm at. So we're just going to try and get that looking fairly even. And we're going to draw this out. And now it's a little different. It's the same color, so it's a little hard to see. But we'll change that in a second here, and then we can adjust. So we'll go back up to here. And let's make this white, I guess. It doesn't really matter because we're going to be using this to cut out the path on the other one. So you'll see what I mean here in a second. So this looks fairly even. If that's the size you want, that's great. If you want a little bit more of a border, if you go to this corner double arrow here, you can resize it. But if we hold the control key down, that forces it to maintain that aspect ratio. And if we hold the shift key down along with that, then it forces it to resize around the middle, like so. So we'll make it a little bit bigger. Now, if we go over here and pick this from our tool list, so this is our path edit node, or edit path nodes. So now you'll notice we've got this little dot here, this little round dot, as opposed to the square one over in this corner. So we're going to grab this handle and we're just going to pull down on it, and you'll notice all four corners are curving. So once we've got that curve about what we want, I think that looks pretty good there. Now, you don't have to have your border this thick. This is just how I'm doing it. It makes everything more obvious and simpler to show in a tutorial setting. But you can set that to however you like. You just resize this. Once you get the size exactly the way you want it, then we're going to make sure that this box is selected. We hold our shift key down, click on this one, and that'll have them both selected. Then I'm going to go up to path. So I'm going to go up to path here, and I'm going to choose difference. Now it doesn't look like anything changed because the background, remember, we made also white. Now we can click on this one and we can change the color. So we can make that yellow or green, whatever is going to work for you. So just so you can kind of see what's happening, let's make it blue. Now if we were to say grab a picture, now I haven't removed the background from this yet, this is just an example. So I'm just going to drag this picture in, and let's make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is if we go over here to the corner, now you'll see if we go up here to our layers, or the order of how stuff is stacked basically. So we can drop this a layer, and now you'll see it pops in underneath this. So this is why we need to cut it out rather than just lay a box over top and then build on that. So this way you can have everything kind of contained within that curved corner border that you've created. So for now I'm just going to delete that picture. Now you might at this point want to put in your picture, but you generally want the background removed. So there's a website here. It's just www.remove.bg. It's a free service. Let's take a picture and we'll drag it on here. And it uploads it, and then it automatically switches to removed background. And if you're happy with that, you can download it, or you can try and download in HD. I'm not sure if they make you pay for that one. Let's give it a try. Oh, so I don't have any credits. So I'm not sure how that system works. I usually find I don't really need to do an HD, so I'll just download it, and you'll see it's already completed the download. Okay, so now I'll go over to my downloads folder, which I've got off screen. So I'm just going to my normal downloads folder, and then we can take this and we can drag it in. So now you'll see it's actually sized pretty appropriately. And then we can grab this corner, make sure we hold the control key down, maintain aspect ratio, size it to where we want it. And then once again, we can drop it down a layer. So it does that. And now we can load stuff in behind it if we want. So something that I like to do a lot of times is put kind of an abstract background in there, but that's, you know, it depends on the type of thumbnails you're making, right? So if you're doing something where you need to kind of show what you were working on, you know, say you're a mechanic and you're showing how to fix something on a bulldozer, so you might want to have a picture of those parts in the background, or you can do something more abstract. So I've already got a bunch that I've made. Let me just drag this in so you can see what I'm talking about here. So I've created a libraries folder, and then photos and stock photos. And then I've got this divided up. So I've got abstract, favorites, fire, you know, all these different ones. So you pick whatever is going to make sense. So let's go ahead and grab something abstract. It just doesn't really matter what we pick. Pick something that's kind of dark, some interesting detail, so we can just drop that in. And I'll drag this back out of sight. Okay, so if I hold my control key down and then operate my scroll wheel, I can zoom out. Then I can resize this. Okay, and then we'll hit the number 5. Okay, so now we don't have to go right to the edges here. And then we can resize this. Now it's not exactly 16 by 9, so we just resize it so that it'll fill the space. And then we can drop it down a couple layers so that's in behind. Now if we wanted to, we could go in with a filter and we could do a blur. So let's just do just a standard blur. And then this will pop a box up. I'll bring it on the screen so you can see it. So then we can set the amount of blur. Just drag this. Oh, and we need to click on live preview. So that's probably a little too much blur. Okay, so that's good enough for the purposes of the tutorial. So we're just going to hit apply, close. Okay, so now I've got a little collection of different logos and stuff that I use. So we can just grab a logo. I have them in the SVG format, so I can grab a YouTube logo and put that in there. And I can set it over here, or I could even have it kind of up here. And then we'll just drop it down a layer or two until it goes behind where we want it. Now I've also got some placards that I've built. Now if you're interested in kind of this collection of stuff, I've actually got a package available on my website. You can either donate or download for free. I'll just show you real quick. So it's just www.fuzzed.ca. And then if we go to the store and we just scroll down near the bottom, and there's this thumbnail design package here. And you can kind of see, got a bunch of stuff kind of all pre-done for you, collection. And if you want to donate, you can use this PayPal to, got some pre-selected amounts. Originally I had the 1 cent in there because I hadn't thought about just doing a free download link, and PayPal wouldn't let me have like a 0 amount as one of them. So I suppose I should actually go fix that, but it doesn't really matter. So you can pick an amount, or you can just download for free. And once you've got the package unzipped, then you'll have access to a whole bunch of stuff here that you can use. So one of the things that some people like to use is what I call a crumpled panel. So let me just grab something here, nice and bright, so you can see it. Now these aren't the colors I would normally use as a combination. There's actually a website you can go to that'll help you pick colors. Don't remember it off the top of my head, but there's quite a few out there that you put in an initial color and then it can show you the complementary colors or the contrasting colors or triadic colors or whatever. There's a whole bunch of different schemes they have for matching colors. So we'll just grab this neon pink one. So then we can bring this in, resize it to what we want, and then we can put some text on it. But before that, we could even go into filters, down to shadows and glows, drop shadow. Bring this in so you can see it. We'll turn on live preview. And I think that actually looks pretty good for a drop shadow. It's fine. Apply and close. Okay, so now we can grab some text. Okay, we'll go back to our selector tool. Now we can grab this on the corner once again. We'll hold the control key down and we can size this to what we want. Now, if you don't want these background placards, and it's something that some people like, I don't particularly like them, but I put them in the package because they're popular with a lot of people. So I'm just going to actually get rid of this little placard thing. So now we can take our text here and just up the size a bit more. Now you may want to look at actually breaking this into 2 lines so you can make it a little bigger. We'll just select everything and we'll choose centered. It's a subtle difference, but looks better. Now if we want to tighten these up vertically, when you've got the text selected on multiple lines, then you've got this little box that shows up, and now I can reduce the amount of vertical space just to tighten things up. Then we can go back to our selector tool. Let's size this up a little more. Okay. Now, if we're happy with having black text, you can see it's a little difficult to read in spots. Kind of blends a little bit too much. This would be especially bad for people that might have some colorblind issues. So what we're going to do is we're add a border here. So now again, this may not be the color that I would normally use for something like this, but it's just easier to see for the purposes of doing a tutorial. So we're going to hold our shift key down, click on the color, and that's going to put an outline on there. Now if you want to adjust that outline, you can go to your fill and stroke settings, and then we're going to pick stroke style. We could actually go to stroke paint, and if you want to get really fancy, you can do like linear gradients and horizontal gradients on the outline, but that's usually a little too subtle for when you're doing this on YouTube thumbnails. So now we've got some choices here. Now right now we've got our outline is showing up on top of the letters, and if you're just doing a thin outline, that could be just fine, but I like to have a little more control, so I want the actual main lettering to be showing the full thing. So I'm going to click on this to kind of round things up a little bit. This as well for the caps, make everything rounded. And I'm going to choose this lower right one here, and you'll see now the outline suddenly went really thin because it's only showing the outer part of it that's basically coming out from behind the letters. So now I can just replace this with any one I want. So let's try 15 pixels. Now, some people don't mind it kind of all blending together on the outlines. Me, it's kind of not my favorite thing. So once again, we're going to go and double click to get into the text box, and then I'm going to select all the lettering here, and then I'm going to grab this, hit this spacing button, and now I can increase the space between the letters. It's taking too long. So let's try changing that to 5. Okay, that's maybe not enough, so let's try 15. Okay, that might be a little much. Let's try 12. Yeah, I think that works pretty good. So go back to our selection tool. Now if we want to add our drop shadow, same thing as before, filter, shadows and glows, drop shadow. Bring this in so you can see it. Hit live preview. And maybe we'll give a little more blur radius. Oop, not too much. Okay. And let's increase our shadow size a little bit here. I always like to do vertical a couple points bigger. And I'm just going to reduce that blur radius a bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm not sure just how well you can see that. If I bring it over top of something a little lighter, so you can see it's got a kind of a nice subtle shadow. It doesn't look too sharp. So I don't want this to get too long here. So I'll show you one other quick thing that can be kind of important. You see we've got this picture here. And when I brought it in, it's, you know, it's got 2 objects, right? So if we want a shadow with just on the background, then we have to be able to select that background object. So we got 2 different ways we can handle it. We can either ungroup it and then select it, or we can just double click on it and it brings us into that group, and then we can select the one that we want. And then once again, we can go to filters, shadows and glows, drop shadow. Live preview, and then we can apply and close. So these are some subtle things that you can add, and you might want to add some little thing that kind of helps draw attention to something you want them to know. Like for instance, if I want them to know that this is for 2023, so I can just type that in. Oops, grabbed the wrong thing. Okay, I know what happened here. It put it into this group with the logo because I forgot to exit out of that group before doing the text. So let me just back this up. So I'm just hitting Control Z here. Okay, so I'm going to right click on this. Well, it looks like now it's actually exited the group, but just to be sure, I'm going to click out on open space here. Now I'm going to go grab the text tool and type in 23. We can resize that, hold my control key down. That's probably a little too much bigger than the rest, so we'll just get this size the way we want it. Maybe we'll do this yellow with a black outline, so once again hold the shift key down to create that outline, and we can go to our stroke style and just change that once again to say 10. And then we'll do that same thing we did before, so it's not on top of the letters. And then if we want this to kind of draw attention, but make sure they don't think it's part of the main text, because sometimes you don't want that, we'll click on it once more. Now you'll see these little arrows change. So I can actually just kind of angle it like this. So I don't want to make this video any longer than it needs to be, so we're going to leave it here. As far as the design portion. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to export this for use on YouTube. We're going to go over here to export. Now you can do it from the menu. I'm just not sure I can remember what it is. Let's see, probably under file. Yeah, there we go. So if you hit export there, then it'll open this window up here. Now what I've done is I've opened the ones that I use all the time and I've put them into this section at the right side here. Now you can adjust where stuff shows up by going into the preferences, but that's a little outside the scope of this tutorial. It gets under edit, yeah, and then you go down to preferences. So in any case, we're gonna do this export, and we're gonna export the entire page rather than something that's selected, because we just want what's fitting within the page that we laid out the dimensions of. That way we won't get this stuff hanging out at the bottom of it. It'll just be what our border is here. Now when you're doing YouTube thumbnails, you can technically use PNGs, but if you do that and you're trying to share your stuff on other social media, like Facebook for instance, it's not going to show up. It just comes up blank when it tries to do the preview. So you need to use JPG or JPEG. So we're going to pop this little list down here. We're going to select JPEG. Make sure that it's going to be in the location that we want. So I'm just going to, because this is just a tutorial, I'm just going to stick this in the downloads folder. And because I had to actually select a different location, I'll select JPEG again from this list. And then I can go save. Now it's going to pop up a little window here. Now the first time you do this, it's going to come up with this warning thing. They want you to use PNG, not JPEG, but you can just ignore this. Now typically for YouTube thumbnails, I like to set my quality at 97. That gives you a decent amount of compression, so it's not taking up a huge amount of memory space, but it keeps the quality pristine. So we'll just okay that. Now I'll just open this up and drag it into where you can see it. So I always like to do this just to confirm that the thumbnail came out okay. And then you can save it wherever you're going to save it and close it out and you're done. And then you can put this on your YouTube video when you upload it. So if you found this tutorial useful, please make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell if you want to make sure that you don't miss any future videos. So thanks for hanging out with us today. Appreciate you being here. See you on the next video. Bye for now.